We will begin with The Wind of the Willows, and today we will start with our chapter called Mole End. It was close and airless, and the earthy smell was strong. The mole struck a match, and by its light the rat saw that they were standing in an open space. The space was neatly swept and sanded underwood. Directly facing them was Mole's little front door with Mole End painted in Gothic lettering over the bell pull to the side. Gothic lettering is what you can see in that picture there, just as like a style of print, so what it looks like. Mole took down a lantern from a nail on the wall, and lit it. And the rat, looking around him, saw that they were in a sort of forecourt. A garden seat stood on one side of the door, and on it the other a roller. The mole was a tidy animal and could not stand having his ground kicked up by other animals into heaps of earth. Down on one side of the forecourt ran a skittle alley with benches along it and little wooden tables. In the middle was a small round pond. Skittles is a lawn game similar to like bowling, but it's a lawn game. And in a skittle alley, it's like a bowling alley, except for it's out on the lawn. And he's got one in his house. It's kind of cool, isn't it? Mole's face beamed at the sight of all these objects. He hurried Rat through the door, lit a lamp in the hall, and took one glance around his old home. Immediately, he saw the dust lying thick on everything, saw the cheerless, deserted look of long neglected house, and collapsed again on a hall chair. "Oh, Ratty," he cried dismally. "Why ever did I do it? Why did I bring you to this poor, cold little place on a night like this?" The rat paid no heed to him. He was running here and there, opening doors, inspecting rooms and cupboards, and lighting lamps and candles. "What a capital little house this is!" When we hear that word capital, remember capital is excellent. He called out cheerily, "Everything here and everything in its place. The first thing we want is a good fire. I'll fetch wood and coals, and you get a duster." So Mole, upon seeing his house, is feeling what? Mole's feeling, think of how Mole's feeling. He's a little gloomy about his house. He's like, "Why did I bring you here?" Well, what is Rat's reaction to it? You'd give me Rat's reaction. What is he doing?
He loves it.
He loves it. He's excited. He's amazed. He's running around the house checking everything out, isn't he? He thinks it's pretty fabulous.
I'm gonna stay there.
Deferred housekeeping. Encouraged by his companion, the mole dusted and polished with energy, while the rat soon had a cheerful blaze roaring up the chimney. He hailed the mole to come and warm himself, but Mole promptly had another fit of the blues. So he's feeling what again?
Sad.
"Rat," he moaned, "how about your supper? Your poor, cold, hungry, weary animal. I've nothing to give you." "What a fellow you are for giving," said the rat calmly. "Why, only just now I saw a sardine opener in the kitchen drawer, and everybody knows that means there are sardines about somewhere. That means there are sardines about somewhere. Pull yourself together and come with me and forage." So they're going to go searching for food. They went and foraged accordingly, hunting through every cupboard and turning out every drawer. The result was not so very depressing after all. A tin of sardines, a box of Captain's biscuits, nearly full, and a German sausage encased in silver paper. "There's a banquet for you," observed the rat as he arranged the table. "No bread," groaned the mole. "No butter. No." No caviar and no champagne, continued the rat, grinning. And that reminds me, what do we get about Mole's attitude right now? Alexa, what would you say about Mole's attitude? He's kind of sad. Charlie?
He's kind of being, I bet Rat's kind of upset with him that he's so, pull yourself together.
Yeah, he's telling him, pull yourself together. He's kind of unkempt, right? Like he's falling apart here. Brock?
He's complaining.
He is complaining a lot, right? This is what I would call a whiny pants, and I would send him off to bed, but I don't think you can do that. No caviar, no champagne, continued the rat, grinning. And that reminds me, what's that little door at the end of the passage? Your cellar, of course. Caviar is just a really expensive delicacy of special salty fish eggs. Yum, right?
It's eggs from a fish.
Yep.
They're delicious?
They say that it's a fancy delicacy. Delicacy just means it's harder to come by. It's super salty. I've never been fancy enough to have caviar, so I don't know. And do you guys know what champagne is?
Yeah.
It's a fizzy type of wine.
And there's some kids. That kid should.
There is kid champagne. This year we had the sparkling grape juice at New Year's at my house. That's like the kids' champagne. It's delicious, except for it's got a lot of sugar and makes me all crazy because I won't sugar it up. Okay, continue reading. Rat made for the cellar door and presently reappeared with a bottle of each in each paw and another in the arm. Now, wherever do you pick up those prints? Make the place look so homelike they do. No wonder they're so fond of it, Mole. Tell us all about it and how came to make it with you. Must be talking about like the pictures in the house, the prints. The Mole, much cheered by Rat's fine compliments, took time to show off his splendid abode. The Rat, though desperately hungry, allowed the Mole to hold court. At last the Rat succeeded in decoying him to the table and had just got seriously to work with the sardine opener when sounds were heard from the forecourt without. Sounds like the scuffling of small feet and a confused murmur of tiny voices. Now, all in line. Hold the lantern up a bit, Tommy. Clear your throat first. Where's young Bill? What's up? Inquired the Rat. I think it must be the field mice, replied the Mole. They go round carol singing regularly this time of year. I used to give them hot drinks and supper, too. Sometimes. Let's have a look at them, cried the Rat, jumping up and running to the door. You guys know what caroling is?
Yeah.
It's like going around and singing. Oh, was he right at who it was?
Yes. Oh, that's cute.
Housework and carolers. It was a pretty sight that met their eyes in the forecourt, lit by dim rays of a lantern. Some 8 or 10 little field mice stood in a semicircle. They had red scarves around their necks, and their forepaws were thrust deep into their pockets with bright, beady eyes that glanced shyly at each other. As the door opened, one of the elder ones that carried the lantern proclaimed, "Now then, 1, 2, 3." And forthwith their shrill little voices rose up into the chill air night. Villagers, I'm not going to sing this, but it's a song. Villagers all with frosty tide, let your doors swing open wide. Though wind may follow and snow beside, yet draw us in by your fire bid. Joy shall be yours in the morning. Here we stand in the cold and the sleet, blowing fingers and stamping feet. Come from far away, you to greet. You by the fire and we in the street, bidding you joy in the morning. For ere one half of the night has gone, sudden a star has led us on, raining the bliss and bention, bliss tomorrow and more anon, joy for every morning on. The voices ceased. The singers exchanged sidelong glances, but for a moment only. Then, from up above and far away down the tunnel they had so lately traveled, came the sound of distant bells ringing. distance bells ringing, a joyful and clangorous peal. So it's just the sound of bells is what they're hearing. Very well sung, boys, cried the rat heartily. And now come along in and warm yourselves. Yes, come along, field mice, cried the mole eagerly. This is quite like old times. Shut the door after you, pull up and settle by the fire. Now, you just wait a minute while, oh, Ratty, he cried in despair, we've nothing to give them. Mole, back with his what? Yeah. You leave that all to me, said the masterful rat. Here, you with the lantern, I want to talk to you. Now, tell me, are there any shops open at this hour that one could go to? Why, certainly, replied the field mouse respectfully. At this time of year, our shop keeps open all sorts of hours. Then, look here, said the rat. You go off at once, you and your lantern, and you get me. Here, much muttered conversation ensued, such as, fresh, mind, no, a pound of that will do. If you get it here, then try this, try something else. Of course, homemade. Finally, there was a chink of a coin passing from one paw to the other. The field mouse was provided with a basket for his purchases, and he hurried off. The rest of the field mice perched in a row on the settle, their small legs swinging, gave themselves up to enjoyment of the fire. And we see that pictured here. They do. The rat, meanwhile, was busy examining the label of the bottles. I perceive this to be ginger beer, he remarked approvingly. The very thing. Now we shall be able to mule some ginger beer. Get the things ready, Mole. I will draw the corks. So he's just getting refreshments prepared. So, well, ginger beer is actually going to be, it's like a soda. It's, like root beer, but instead of being made with that, ginger beer is actually made with a ginger. So it's kind of like a spicy soda, kind of. Sometimes it's spicy, sometimes it's not. But that's all ginger beer. So it's just like soda. We actually have ginger beer in our fridge almost all the time. It's when I was pregnant, I would drink ginger beer because ginger calms your tummy. So it's something that we always have had. So.
Why is a gingerbread man or a gingerbread cookie
also spiced with ginger?
What? Really?
Okay. It did not take long to prepare the brew. Soon every field mouse was sipping and coughing and choking, for a little mulled ginger beer goes a long way, and wiping their eyes and laughing. So I don't know exactly what they have in there, but ginger can be a little bit spicy too. Got a little bit of a tang to it. But they act plays too, these fellows, the mole exclaimed to the rat. Make them all up by themselves, and very well they do it too. They gave us a capital one last year. That word again. They gave us a capital one. They gave us a excellent one last year about a field mice who was captured by the sea by pirates. Here you were in it. Get up and recite a bit. The field mice addressed got up on his legs, giggled shyly, looked around the room, and remained absolutely tongue-tied. His comrades cheered him on. Mole coaxed and encouraged him, and the rat went so far as to shake him. But nothing could overcome his stage fright. The now mute field mouse was saved from further encouragement by the sound of the door opening. The field mouse with the lantern had reappeared with a heavy basket. There was no more talking of play acting once the content of the basket had been tumbled out onto the table. Under the generalship of Rat, everybody was set to do something. In a very few minutes, supper was ready, and they ate and they talked of old times. They clattered off at last, very grateful indeed. When the door had closed on the last of them, Mole and Rat kicked up the fire, drew their chairs in, and discussed the events of the day. At last, the rat, with a tremendous yawn, said, Mole, I'm ready to drop. That your own bunk over there on the side? Very well, then I'll take this. Then Rat clambered into his bunk and rolled himself well up into the blankets as slumber gathered him in. And that is the end of our read aloud for today.
We see the other picture.